Hello everyone, this is the Nameless One, and tonight we will be doing Creator Roundup Animators 2. Before we get started, I would like to remind everybody, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. And let's go ahead and get started. Get a smaller crowd here tonight. And Diamond, we're going to let you start us off with the introduce who you are, what you do, and let's go with first thing you ever animated.
Oh boy. Yes, my name is Diamond G. I'm actually a content creator when it comes to either between cover songs, 3D animation, and also speed paints. As for the first animation I've done is when I did the FNAF 1 rap song by GT Music, which is five long nights.
Okay. ACLP.
Hello. Hello everyone. I am ACLP Films. I'm mostly been called short as AC for short. I've mostly been doing SFM animations pretty much. I've been doing it since 2020 and been mostly doing it for entertainment and stuff for mostly the My Little Pony fandom. The first animation I've been done I usually do is do one of my Marvels skits. But when I was able to upload my video, which is the Twilight Sparkle Cheering You Up, that's when the legacy started pretty much and got me more into animations and got me more into going to pretty much conventions pretty much. So yeah, mostly doing it for entertainment, just to make everyone smile and to get entertainment.
Okay. Equestria.
Me?
Yes, you.
Right. First animation I've ever done.
Hold on, you gotta tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I'm not entirely sure. This was...
You're starting with the last thing. Who are you? What do you do?
It's, well, I run a YouTube channel, I create art in my spare time, and recently I've been volunteering to help make art and animation for audio genres on other channels. So that's mostly what rekindled my interest in animation. Do I return to the earlier question of what the first one was?
Yeah, what was your first animation?
Okay. The thing is, I don't actually know. I used to make animations on a software called Pivot back when I was a kid, and I never actually saved them into a video file. They're all just animation files on Pivot. It was a software that allowed you to animate stick figures, basically. I have no idea what the first one was. All I know is that was my first experience with creating animation. It was years ago. I hope that helps.
Okay. Grease.
Hey, hi. My name is Jesse Greenhart. I have been doing animation for, I'd say, about a good round of 11 years, because the first animation software I ever used was Source Filmmaker. Most of my animations were FNAF based back in the day, but nowadays I've been learning more of other stuff as well as Blender. Mostly what I do is animation and also drawing, but I do like the occasional writing stuff like scripts. Like most of you guys know me for my theories. The first ever animation I have ever done, it's lost media at this point, but it was just an animation of a mangle on Source Filmmaker. It's like lost media. If I can find it again, I'd gladly re-upload it because that's like a piece of history for me.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the pretty much the same set of basic questions I ask every set of creators. Starting off with, what does y'all's creative process look like? Like, what does it take to get started with like animation and get going with your like what do you do first, stuff like that. And I'm gonna pick on Dries first.
Oh, all right, sure. For me, it's a bit difficult. It really depends on what my source material is and what I am doing for the animation. It all like gets processed in my head, but putting it like into the computer is like the hardest part because I am not one to like reuse certain props or assets or something like that. But most of the time I probably have to just to get a general reference of what I'm trying to work on. I also use like the 3D stuff to help with my 2D drawings a bit. And sometimes even like drawing a 2D sketch of what I want to put into the animation also helps, but I don't do that super often. That's like an occasional once in a blue moon thing. But what I do instead is I just try to use like blanks, like whatever I can, like summed up in a still image in 3D, and then I work off of it from there. But again, it's like really hard for me to come up with it because like midway as I'm trying to finish the project, I just sort of burn out rather quickly, more quickly than I normally want to. And the main reason why is because my computer is terrible.
Okay.
Scenes without my entire computer freezing up. So I'm gonna eventually get a new computer for that so I can do my 3D animations better. But once the product becomes actually finished, I am 100% proud of it. Like the most proud I've been of a piece of animation that I have done that feels like cinematic-esque, because that's sort of what I like to do, is a part of the dragon theory I did at the very end. That was like the most proud piece I've ever done, especially on this like computer tower that I thought would never even be able to run it. So, yeah.
Okay. Diamond, your turn.
Well, I can kind of say like very similar to Breeze. I mean, for the hardest part when it comes to
but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I was like very similar because most of the time whenever I try to animate something, it basically just goes and whatever it is, whatever it pops into my head. Well, even though my PC is not able to run SFM as of right now, but I definitely do plan on going back into it as soon as I get my new PC together. And I would say the hardest part when it comes to animating is, well, I honestly find it doing the lip sync the hardest. Basically, how I do it is I use a bit of the combination of how the actual show usually doing it. But between that and how we actually do it in real life, it's really not easy to master. I could definitely say that.
Okay. Was that all you had?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. ACLP.
All right. Yes. I've been mostly using Source Filmmaker, so pretty much yes. Animations, like doing 3D animations, what I mostly do really takes time. So at first, I usually just start doing the process of learning of doing this, having to do a script, or pretty much knowing your vision on your head, what sketch what you wanted to present. So yes, doing the doing the animation process on Source does require a lot of things to pretty much include, like what models you should include pretty much, and what scenery, the scene build pretty much, and how pretty much is how is it going to render. Like it's either 24 frames per second, 60, or 72. So usually I just go by some of the things I used when I used the reference pretty much. So I pretty much the only process is that it takes time. So there will be at times where you're trying to prep something, like you're trying to do a deadline, and you wanted to get this thing done. That's the only thing. Sometimes you wanted to set up a deadline to know when this will be shown on the internet, and yes, there were times I actually do get a bit burnt out, which can suck actually. But it's more of a taking time. Is pretty much usually when I do animation, I usually take time and just, of course, do a lot of research and practice whenever I wanted to know what should be presented and how this can be executed when doing these animations. Pretty much,
Okay.
that's it.
E.
What's my creative process, right?
Yes.
Right. I'd say kind of the same answer as Jesse, in the sense that it's kind of hard to get the ideas down there first and foremost, and it also kind of depends on what animation I'm working on at the time. If it's something that involves someone else's project, I'm usually provided with an audio file to work off and a script to follow. So that usually helps with setting the scene. But actually starting usually requires preparing resources to use, like image vectors and things I can move around. So my creative process usually involves doing the little bits first, creating the first shot, and building up from there. Because once I actually get that first part done, then I have an idea of where I'm going, usually, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What kind of animation do you do, EE? Because the other three said SFM at least once, so...
Uh,
Are you 2D animating?
kind of a mixture of vector and stop motion, in a sense.
Okay.
It's basically 2D animation. Actually, the ones that examples are coming up on the in the live stream at the moment, unless there's a delay.
There
I
is
don't actually
definitely
know
a
if there's
delay. There is a delay.
Okay.
But the delay, they see it as we're talking about it
Yeah.
for the most
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, I tend to prefer 2D and moving vectors around.
Okay.
Not even necessarily puppets. Usually, just individual vector components that can be moved around and switched for other ones. It's probably not the best process, but it's how it works.
Yeah, sometimes the worst processes that you come up with for yourself are what's works for you, even if it doesn't work for others. And as long as it works, it's fine. Anyways, I think the next question we're going to go into is that so some of you sound like newer animators, but this is kind of a two-part question. First part is, what is your biggest piece of advice to new animators, and what is something that you really wish you had found out before you started? And we will start with Chi.
Oh boy. Wait, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
So, your best advice to new animators and something you really wish you had known before you started animating.
Well, it's as as far as the animation goes, and premise and best advice would be that you should definitely be taking your time on it and try not to rush it. It doesn't. It could end up making some mistakes if you end up rushing it and yeah, I know it's not like the biggest advice I would give, but all I can say is basically just take your time on it.
Okay. ACLP?
Just give me a second while I get ready. When it comes to the for these new animators, when it comes to that is I would just start very simple. Pretty much start very simple. You usually when you're very new or small, they would usually start small and then later they will grow big. Pretty much. So, I usually do not rush the project. Do not be so very rushy because usually, like what I said, mentioned, it usually takes time, and the more time you put into it, the more it would look better and look great whenever you try to animate something, which like when it comes to 2D or 3D animation, and it does take some practice and patience, pretty much. Pretty much. The one thing I could have done very much is pretty much because what I could have because I've been using Source Filmmaker. And I would say because usually Source Filmmaker is like what most beginners for 3D animators use is trying to get into Blender is something I wanted to go level up in the future, and pretty much I wanted to go level up in because sometimes using software can have some limitations. So I wanted to do something that actually animate something that can go over the top with some limits. And another thing to do when you're doing the animations, of course, you should have fun with the process. Pretty much, yeah. Get in to have some fun, have fun. Pretty much that's all.
Okay. Drizzy?
Okay, hang on. What was the question again? I got a little caught up.
Two questions technically. First one's what's your biggest piece of advice to new animators, and what is the thing that you wished you could have known before you started animating?
Both sort of related in the same boat. Take your time with your project. Like, I wish I would have known sooner that I can just take my time with things, and it's also okay to just fuck up. If you mess up during your project, that's fine. That's literally a part of your learning process. Like, no matter how bad your finished project might look to you, other people will say that it is progress, and it is. I want everyone to know that because I wish I would have known that sooner because I am always hard on myself when it comes to my projects. So please keep that in mind that no matter how rough it might look to you, no matter how bad it might look to you at first, it is progress into something better.
Some might also say it is project.
Advice. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. But just, keep that in mind when you're working on anything, really, not just animation. Just, it's all part of the process.
And EE, I believe you haven't gone yet.
I think what I'd say is kind of similar to what Jazzy said. Basically, trust the process. Just get most of it done, and you'll start to see where the improvements can be made, and it'll get easier to adjust that. And if you're starting to get frustrated, you can come back to it tomorrow or any other time. It's fine. Don't give up on it. Unless you really have something better to do, of course. But yeah. Is that okay?
That works. Anything in particular that you wish you had known before you started?
I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay. Well, if you don't have an answer,
Yeah,
that's
sorry
fine
about
as well. So, next
Yeah,
question we're going to do is what attracted you guys into animation? Like, what about animation made you decide I want to do that? And we'll start with ACLP.
What attracts me to do animations, correct? Right?
Yes.
Yeah, this one. What got me into the animations? Before it all started, I used to do photography, graphic designing, motion graphics. But when I got my new PC, my new gaming laptop, which happened at COVID, during the COVID time, 2020, I was looking at one of these fan animation videos in My Little Pony. I noticed I saw one of the SFM, or something about SFM, and pretty much I learned something that I saw from Argodamian. Yep, big shout out Argodamian. Pretty much, yeah, he got me pretty much inspired to do SFM animations. And when I was able to look at it, I was like, wait, maybe I can try to do something with Source Filmmaker since I got this new gaming laptop. And pretty much what I explained, I really pretty much started simple, and I pretty much was able to learn pretty much I've been doing animation practice, more of practicing before I actually started doing contents on when it comes to animation. So I pretty much try to use all the creative ideas that I had in my head, where I thought I wanted to make something that no one has animated yet, like maybe try to make something like animate a comic dub, pretty much. So another thing too with those stuffs is having to watch tutorials, pretty much. So yeah, pretty much one of our demons and pretty much all the fan creators that created using SFM got me inspired into it, and getting to make more contents that, yeah, sometimes I make user reference, but sometimes I want to make something to not always be pretty much just use too much of a reference and just make my own creativity in my own vision whenever I see something in the vision or the screen in the screenplay, pretty much. So yeah, pretty much COVID got me into SFM animations because you stay home and you wanted to do something you want to have fun with,
Okay.
pretty much.
EE, your turn.
Well, what probably first got me into animation was just the fact that I could do animation. The having access to the Pivot software did make it a lot easier at first. But I think what really got me going back was just the fact that I could throw ideas out there or depict stuff that might not otherwise happen or exist or be filmable or visualizable in any other way. Just the amount of control you get from the use of animation. That's what mostly draws me in, really.
Okay. Jesse.
I think mostly for me, it's just my constant exposure online to SFM animations, especially during my FNAF community age. Like, I saw a lot of those, and I thought, I want to do that. So, once I had my Steam account, which I first got when I bought fucking FNAF 3, I decided to download Source Filmmaker and try it for myself. That's how I met a lot of my friends and how I got more into the FNAF community. And small fun fact, two of the other people in this podcast know a person named RaiRai99, which was like another huge inspiration for my animations. And like I'm also friends with the guy, so are they. So like I just find it pretty funny that they're also here joining me on this podcast. But like yeah, it's mostly other SFM animations and like watching movie animations in general that got me my inspiration. And it only grew further when I learned about stuff like Blender and all these other advanced 3D softwares. Like, that's something I want to do, and I'm still trying to pursue it. And eventually I might want to try and make it a job. But I don't know about that just yet, like actually making it happen. But yeah.
That last bit is just about every creator's dream.
Yeah, no kidding.
Chi.
Well, I would say it would be like kind of very similar to hers. Only I was actually more into My Little Pony at the time, and I will say I actually didn't learn how to use the Source Filmmaker at the time, and I was looking at the YouTube videos and how. Well, I was actually looking at the other animators and how they actually do it. It actually kind of inspired me to try to do it my own, but I'll be honest, I actually tried looking at the tutorials on how to use it, but I couldn't understand a single thing on it. Though that was actually right before I met that one user known as Just Jolly, and he actually was able to come into the tone with me here on Discord and actually told me how to do it himself, and it actually did help a lot and make things a little bit easier. And I was only doing posters at the time, and that was right before I met the other two users known as AJ Films and Moonmon For You, or just Moon. And from between both of them, Moon was actually able to teach me how to do the Source Filmmaker animations using the rigs. And it actually wasn't kind of fun on doing it, so I decided. So I've been continuing practicing ever since. Yeah, I still am.
Okay. Seems like Source Film is a really good tool for getting people to actually start trying animation. A little less daunting than, say, Blender.
Yeah, it is a little complex at first, but once you start doing the posters and doing the posing more often, it actually makes things a little bit easier.
Okay. So, next question we'll do, and before I continue, I'm going to remind everybody in the audience that if you guys have questions you would like to ask the lovely people on the podcast, then feel free to leave them in the chats, and I will go through and pick out some of them at the end. But for the next question, what we're going to do is, what is the most difficult part of animation, other than the aforementioned burnout? Like, is it like, do you use models you make yourself and that takes forever getting them set up? Is it the motion stuff? Like, what is the most difficult part of animation for you guys? And we will start with Chi.
I mean, personally, when it comes to animations, almost everything on it is a little bit easy, but as far as the hardest part goes, and the hardest part for me was definitely the lip syncing, because, but like I said, how I do it is based on the My Little Pony show itself, and how we actually do it in real life. And yeah, the way I do it, I had to make sure it's actually like running really smooth, and make sure it's well, basically just to put it this way, just make sure it's smooth and fluent. It's all I can say.
Okay. ACLP.
Okay, yeah. Pretty much the hardest part is actually trying to make your own animation cycle, like the walking cycle, the running cycle, pretty much. So yeah, that can take time when you try to use the reference. When I try to use a cycle reference, that usually is the hardest part when you're trying to make your own sequence, especially in doing the walking animation or the hoof animations for the pony. Yeah, that really get complicating, but it really that again it really takes time, and also another thing is the hardest part is to pretty much trying to go through the source filmmaker, trying to make sure it renders without having it to crash when you have a when you have a lot of stuff that is on the animations objects, the objects or pretty much the scene build. That's the hardest is trying to go through the crash and trying to go through the crash when the software is couldn't handle it and you had to render it slowly. Pretty much, yeah.
That seems to be a universal complaint amongst any creators that have to use programs online. Is when the software just says no.
Yeah, pretty much. Especially when you have so much in your so much memory to try to get it rendered into a one sequence. Especially especially trying to make a poster.
Okay. Drizzy.
For me, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Everything. Getting the lighting set up correctly, getting the poses done correctly, making sure the lip sync is on time, the frame rates, the timing of the video, how long it takes to get it done, the rendering, the characters that need to be put into the animation. It's all pretty hard, especially with the fact that my computer ain't the greatest. It's mostly why it's difficult for me. But I think the most difficult thing for me, God, I haven't really decided myself. I definitely do think it's the animation as a whole. I've been learning a bit more on step animation because back then I just winged it with bookmarks and just did what I could in the moment. But, like, figuring out what the actual poses and animation that needs to be done for, because I have it in my head, it's hard to repeat it on computer, basically. It's hard to repeat it in the animation. That's like the hardest part for me. And second hardest is definitely the lighting, because I still have some stuff to learn on how to get the lighting done correctly. But like the lighting is definitely the second hardest when it comes to animation. It can be a pain, and like literally like what AC said before, constant crashes are always an issue, especially in Blender. Like it's a lot more complex and complicated, and if you have a not so good computer that can't handle a lot of memory or RAM or whatever, it's a constant ongoing battle between you and the software. It's hard.
Once again, fist fighting the software for supremacy.
Pretty much. It's a constant fight, but once you get it to work, it's worth it in the end.
EE.
What's the hardest part about animating? I'll be honest. What ACLP said about walk cycles, I can't think of anything else I've cut to another scene in an animation more than a character having to walk somewhere or focusing on the top part so I don't show their legs moving that much. I think that might actually be the thing I tend to
Anything but
find
the
the
walking.
hardest. I hope that.
Is that all you had to say?
Pardon?
Was that all you had?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So here's a fun one that I haven't really done too often. So everybody knows, at least with SFM animation, I'm not as sure for 2D, but SFM animation, if you turn the camera in to the side for a lot of like the some of the more well-known ones, you get wonky looking monstrosities as they're using various tricks to fool the camera into showing something to the viewer that isn't actually what's going on behind the scenes. So what are some tricks that like that you've learned to like help with either avoiding things that you are trying to avoid show up on camera or things like that? Did that question make sense?
think so.
I think so. I think
Okay.
I kind of got. I know what you're talking about, but like to me, that's just generally what every 3D program has done, not just SFM, but like I think I do get the idea.
See, normally I don't see as much. I use if you go on YouTube, it's easier to find behind the scenes for SFM than any other program, and I think it was the one that I'm particularly
Yeah,
think
that is
of
true.
is called Plutus Engage, and
Oh,
at the end of the video it shows side perspectives of some of the scenes where the model is all stretched to hell and back in order to get the scenes that you see in the animation. So things like that, or like, not having entire models fully like animated for scenes and things like that. It's kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Tips and tricks that you've picked up that the viewer would never know, but all the animators go, "Oh, that's a good idea." Does that make sense?
yeah. Okay, I get it now.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you go first because nobody else really said much.
Yeah. I have learned to just not focus on anything that is not in the perspective of the camera because I had a weird habit of literally animating everything, even if it's not on the camera, and that wasted a lot of time for me. So definitely, I have learned more to be okay with only animating what's in the shot of the camera perspective. I still have yet to learn that trick where you stretch everything out on like certain planes, but if you have the camera just right, it'll look good. But that's pretty much the trick, or I guess the general tip that I've learned over time. And that's honestly about all that I've learned. There's still a lot that, even with my 11 years in source filmmaker and like few years in Blender, I'm still generally learning. So, yeah.
So I have a couple of questions because as far as animation, I have keyframed in DaVinci. In fact, there's a short on my channel, the only short on my channel, and that is the only animation or anything vaguely resembling animation I have ever done. But I do want to ask a couple of questions, follow up with what you said, Drizzy. With what you're doing with the so it's two questions. First one, when you say like animating things outside of the camera's perspective, are you talking like if you have butterflies in the scene, they're still doing things off screen kind of deal?
Essentially, yeah, it's basically like that, but it's also like if there's another character off screen. It was like that levels of I have to animate everything even if it's not on the camera. But like I've gotten used to not doing that anymore, and it's saved up a lot of time with my animation progress. So
the next question is, I'd imagine that it also massively saved on file size.
oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like I don't know much about file size and like RAM and all that, but like the less characters or the less movement there was, the less lag problems I had. It also it like depends on the details of the model that I'm using usually. Like when I have it also just comes down to the computer as well. It also comes down to how well the computer can handle it, because sometimes it can be so simple, but for some reason something takes up that memory and makes everything lag. So it all comes down to how well your computer can handle it. But really, it's a time saver to just only animate what's on screen, and that's it.
Okay. ACLP, I heard you chime in as I was telling Drezzy she was going first. Your turn.
When it comes to the camera perspective and stuff.
Just any kind of things, shortcuts, stuff like that you use to like help you along the way, that things that the viewer will never notice, but and an animator go, huh, that's a good idea, if they realize what was going on.
Okay, yeah. Pretty much, yes. When it comes to pretty much doing these using Source Filmmaker, pretty much yes. I have done some shortcuts to where, like what Spinny said, that yeah, there are some things that can be that can be animated on the screen, but then it doesn't really get fully animated out of the screen whenever I try to animate. So usually, yeah, very easy thing to do. I usually use like the rig pretty much, because sometimes using something that has no rig can be a bit complicating when trying to get. So a rig also kind of helps out too. And another thing when it comes to I also use like pretty much the composition. Like pretty much I've been using like the rule of thirds and pretty much the rule of thirds and the aspect ratio changes. That really helps when you're trying to make something very cinematic. And also when it comes to the rendering part, for the rendering, sometimes sometimes you want to render it in 60 frames per second or 90 frames per second. And that can take a long time to render when depending on how much frames per second you actually have. So I usually use a software that allows it to pretty much enhance and to upscale it up to 60 frames or 72 frames per second, when I usually render it in 24 frames per second, which I've mostly been using to. Yes, there are some things where you can actually upscale the frames and make it more enhanced, especially with stuff like that. Especially upscaling for a bigger ratio, which I usually do outside Source for the post processing part, where it definitely saves some time, because sometimes Source can render based on how the computer is and how the limitation is, but you can pretty much use other software or enhance AI to make it pretty much upscale in the right way perfectly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn.
Well, yeah, I was saying I was saying kind of like the same thing as AC does. Like I do use some rigs for when it comes to animating, and there are sometimes I use the rule in theirs, but mostly when it comes to poster making. And as far as the animation goes, and I just I would sometimes just move the camera around in different angles and see which one would actually be perfect, and whether it's zoom in and zoom out, and it, I just mostly go with whatever I think is perfect. As far as the render goes, I mean, I used to use the 60 frames per second, but I moved over to 72 because of how really smooth it's gotten. Sure, it does take a long time to render, but it definitely is worth it as soon as it was done. And some people does do it in that before, but I honestly prefer the image sequence and to make sure the video is a whole lot smoother, and it really does help a lot.
Okay. And E.
I don't know. I think the I think the closest I've got to a trick that I use is if I want to get a 3D effect, I basically create two separate 2D animations and then overlay one on top of the other. And then if I finished with if the foreground ends up covering the background animation, I just stop working on the background animation and focus on the foreground.
Okay.
That's really the only thing that comes to mind, really. Hope that helps.
I mean, it does make sense. It falls under the category of the question. Let's see. So this should be an interesting one. Say without worry about time constraints, budget, or hardware constraints, what would be something that you would absolutely love to animate? Whether it be like a scene from an existing property or something entirely original. What is something that is just like either an eventual goal or one of those pipe dreams because the software that you have access to can't do it? And we will start with E.
Oh my gosh. Well, having grown up on animated films and particularly ones involving rats and mice as the main characters, I've mostly been kind of had ideas in mind about creating similar animated films set in a similar kind of universe. I even wrote old stories in the past inspired by that kind of concept. And I think if I had the ability, I might try to do something. Might have tried to do something like that. But yeah, I don't know if that has ever actually happened. Carry on.
Great Mouse Detective, anyone?
Yeah, something like that.
Chi.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What would be like your dream animation, whether it's something that you can't do right now or something you plan to do in the future, just like the thing that you are like eventually want to but have not yet animated, whether it be like a scene from something else, a series, or like a totally original like short animation that.
Oh boy, there was like a lot of ideas for animations I really want to do. It actually really is hard to keep track. But if I had to choose one, it would probably definitely be trying to make my make my own animation series. Whether if it's like kind of an audio drama or basically just my own series where you actually be able to voice act in it, and voice acting is like something I also wanted to do in the future, especially especially if it actually gets put into an animation.
Okay. Gracie.
Okay, sorry. Basically, what I would really like to work on is like my own kind of animated series. But again, due to my computer not being the greatest and me not having a lot of time on my hands at the current moment and not having a whole lot of resources to really pursue that, I'm sort of stuck on not being able to. Like, I have a plethora of projects I want to get to at some point in time. And if I listed them all that are animation related, I think we'd be here for a long time. But one of the main things is to like have a sort of animated series that is based around my character's story. Like, that is something I really want to pursue. Because I like telling stories, especially about creations that I have made up, and that can be seen by other people and probably get inspired by. I think it. I feel like I've talked about this before. I already essentially have my own little team right now of people that can help me further that process because like they have been helping me a lot with these kind of projects, and one of them is to write up the story on having it probably be animated at some point. That is something that I would love to work on in the potential future, especially when it comes down to stuff that I've made. That's my dream right there.
Okay. And ACLP.
Oh yeah, pretty much one of my dreams or what something I wanted to do is try to get into doing motion capture for like pretty much controlling your own character, controlling the character without having to use your mouse and keyboard just to animate. That is something that would actually help, especially since I always go on VR or something called VR chat, to where you can actually pretty much because there's an option now that you can actually use your VR headset to pretty much animate your own or a software, pretty much a software animation software where you can actually animate your character, but using your own movements, especially when you're on half body or full body. That is something I wanted to do, so I don't have to always just rely on just doing this using my own mouse just to animate keyframes, animated by keyframes, pretty much. And another thing too is pretty much try to hopefully get an opportunity to get to learn a lot using Blender. That's something another opportunity to do when you feel like your contents are way level up and you wanted to go up to the next level. I was hoping to get to Blender very soon. That would literally take time, especially and there's another opportunity. But I might also try to learn how to animate in Unity, despite knowing I also do VR. Usually do editings on VR chat avatars, which I usually do. Yeah.
Yeah, the mocap suits be expensive. I looked into those at one point for VR chat. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna do one more question, and then for time we'll probably cut it after that. So a lot of different people have different opinions on this one, but what is in your opinions, the most important part of an animation? Whether that be something like lighting, framing, shot composition, whatever. And we will start with Chi.
Oh boy. I would say for the most important part for when it comes to animation, I honestly thought the camera was important, but I would say the most important would definitely be the lighting, because well, I mean, for when it comes to smooth animations, you do want to make them smooth, but you also want to make sure you don't have too many shadows. So for when it comes, so make sure that the model actually doesn't become too dark, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Is that all you had?
yeah, I would say that the lighting is basically. I would say the lighting is most important.
Drizzy.
Okay, what was the question again? Sorry, I got a little distracted.
In your opinion, what is the most important part of animation? Whether it's shot composition, something behind the scenes that the viewer doesn't see, lighting.
I think to me, the most important part is the animation itself. The lighting can all be done afterwards in whatever way you want it. It comes down to how it's all animated with the characters and the way it moves, the way it expresses out to you. What matters is making sure that they are expressive. It does not matter if they are just digital puppets. You need to make them feel like they're still real at the end of your project. In whatever way you want, in whatever way you can, you gotta make them feel real. That to me is the most important aspect of animation. Making it feel like you can feel what the character is feeling just by looking at how they move, how they act, and how the movements form as they talk. To me, that's the most important.
Okay. E.
Again, I kind of agree with what Drizzy says. That's kind of what I was going to say. Basically, the important part of animation is that there is movement involved in something that would ordinarily be stationary. I don't know if just generally speaking, I don't think animation needs to be 100% realistic or have believable characters. It just needs to show movement in order to qualify as an animation in my mind. But in terms of aiming to make something that is special or good in your eyes, certainly I tend to gravitate towards characters or details or things that stand out. But, just generally, I think movement is the main part of animation that's most important. Really, I hope that helps.
Okay. And ACLP.
All right, so pretty much, yeah. There are some important stuffs to put the detail for SFM. Most of the thing is mostly trying to get the pretty much the cinematic quality. Another one is pretty much obviously you have to pretty much when I do the animations, I just or the actual overall animation, I usually start doing the animation first before prioritizing with the others. Like usually I do the lighting, the expressions last, but usually I just do the poses and the posing and animation pretty much at first, and also the entire scene build at first, so I can get that to handle, which can be done. Another thing also to be important is attention to details. Pretty much put a lot of more details into it. Pretty much try to be more creative and pretty much show how your creative style and how you want this to approach. And another thing is whenever it comes to animation is pretty much the character's facial expressions. Yes, there should be some facial expressions or emotions so that it de- depending on how they wanted to how they react to it's pretty much add the entire good the entire detail pretty much, and that's like pretty much, yeah, mostly facial expressions is pretty much important, especially when you have to control when you have to control one of the eyes, and also their, well, of course, lip syncing pretty much, and especially the thing I also keep also trying to also make sure is just the hair movements and the ears pretty much, which I also had to which I do struggle with when it comes to trying to do facial expressions.
Actually, that's one that I, as a viewer, have always noticed Like, you don't realize how important the movement of things like hair is until you watch a video with Celestia or Luna waving cardboard hair around.
Hmm.
But
Especially when you want to try to animate where it's very windy outside. Depending on the environment, usually it does require some of the parts of the body that needs to have movement, depending on the environment of the entire sequence.
hmm. Anyways, I think that for now, we're going to go ahead and call it both kind of a shorter episode because we have a few less guests and also don't want to keep E up too long. Thank you for being here, E. I know it's like 3 in the
That's
morning
okay.
for you.
I don't have to go to work tomorrow. So.
But
True.
other than that, for those of you that may or may not still be watching, if you enjoyed that and would like to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch. I have links in the description for all of these lovely people. Go check out their stuff. They do cool things on the internet. So I've got all of the links that they sent me to be able to for you to guys to look at their stuff. There's also links in the description to my Discord, which some of them may or may not stick around there. I know a few of them have, as well as links on further supporting the channel. A big thank you to my priest tier patrons, Cameo, Shadowless, Ice Crystal, and Scarmax. Other than that, we should be here tomorrow for Lost Memory Second Chances, barring any more scheduling conflicts. Other than that, everybody have a great evening and don't forget to drink water.
Bye. Thank you for letting me on this.